we're back already. NCP Wi-Fi Season 5. This is going to be our draft analysis. I know literally last weekend you saw the finals game, but we got a quick turnaround. We want to capitalize on the momentum and the, the awesome time we had last season and, hopefully ride that into this season. Now, if you guys haven't checked out our Season 4 run, I definitely recommend doing so. It's in a playlist on the channel. I'll probably link in the description below as well. But spoilers, 3, 2, 1. We won. We won the championship. As you can see by this very clean, pretty golden background. All the other coaches had just standard NCP blue background. And this was our perk for winning. We didn't get, first pick or anything, but realistically, it's not that big of a deal. I kind of like being able to flex the gold in front of everybody. I think it'll be like this in the draft stream too, which is pretty hype. If you guys are coming from the draft stream, hello, welcome to my channel. Again, I do a lot of draft league content. We were the NCP's champion last season, but we play in plenty of other draft leagues, do plenty of discussion videos, a bunch of stuff like that. So if you enjoy our content, if you enjoyed this draft analysis, if you go and check out the other stuff, which I highly recommend, definitely be sure to drop a sub. We're pushing towards 500 subs, and if you could help me get there, I would very much so appreciate it. An absolute ton. So, yeah, with that being said, I guess we can kind of finally jump into the draft analysis. Now, I streamed earlier today, so my throat is killing me because I just streamed watching draft league games, so my throat's killing me. I'm very tired, so I got a little bit of coffee. I'm going to be sipping that throughout, so excuse me if I take little sips in between because I'm a little tired, but we're going to pound through it and get through it. Today's my freest day, so I figured I might as well record and stuff like that. But going into the season, we actually were fortunate enough to get second pick overall. Now, as much as I really wanted to try Pult, as it's by far the best mod in the format, Liv grabbed it before. She was randomized to the first pick, and she grabbed Big Drag Bolt, as she probably should have. So we were kind of left with grabbing what's next best. I was tempted to grab Mew, but I'm trying that in a showdown league. I was tempted to grab, not really much else other than, realistically the Mew in a round one pick where we grabbed Urshifu Single Strike. This Pokemon looks like an absolute blast. I've used it in a Showdown League before. I genuinely really love this thing. It's incredibly brain dead. You just click Wicked Blow and you prosper. And that's going to be kind of the whole point of this team, is get Urshifu in for free, get into those advantageous matchups, draft Pokemon that beat its checks and counters, and hopefully do well with it. Now, Urshifu's ridiculously strong, pretty bulky on the Fistiff side. It's just mostly that pretty solid speed tier along with the, the stab combination of fighting plus dark, and then also having the access to Wicked Blow. Wicked Blow is basically a move that always crits. I believe it's base 90 power, something like that, but it always crits, which means it goes through boosts, and it, essentially equates to be 120 base power, I think, before stab and all that stuff. So you basically have that and close combat. You have momentum and U-turn. You have coverage for fairies and poison jab and iron head. You get all the elemental punches, I believe. And you can also go with crazy bulk upsets, things like that. You have Sucker Punch for priority. This Pokemon is Wall Breaker incarnate. It is so incredibly difficult to switch into this Pokemon, and that's going to be our main game plan, is trying to chip down teams, put them in range of Urshifu, and just simply click Wicked Blow. Now, kind of going on top of that, I wanted to get something that really checked good, really well-ly checked, defensive fairies, fat fairies, and things like that. And I figured one of the best Pokemon to do so was actually going to be Corviknight. Now, Corviknight is what we grabbed next. It pivots in on pretty much any fairies. It's a very, very slow U-turner, which is amazing for Urshifu because we can bait in those Pokemon, get a slow U-turn, go into Urshifu for free, and that's best case scenario. We obviously also defensively beat 90% of fairies. Obviously, we have to be careful, like setup ones, offensive ones with, fire coverage, things like that. But realistically, we should be able to beat a good majority of them, despite it being a little bit more passive, and despite it not really being used with its Steel Stab very often. Iron Head's definitely something I'm not afraid to bring, especially being in this draft league format. This gives us a great defogger. It gives us actually another Shadow Sweeper and Bulk Up. I think Bulk Up or even Iron Defense sets are very, very solid in conjunction with, Brave Bird plus Body Press. Can be really hard for a team to deal with, once this thing gets steamrolling. It's incredibly bulky, as pressure, so, pressure stalling shenanigans. I think pressure is one of the best abilities in draft, and, it's a great way of, beating checks that you normally shouldn't beat. I will for sure bring Sub Roost Corviknight. I guarantee you, because I'll be able to PV stall a lot of things, and I'm not above that for sure. But I think this Pokemon's gonna be genuinely great. I mainly love it though for that momentum, for that slow pivoting option to get an Urshifu for free, check those offensive fairies, be a good defogger, and just be an overall really, really solid steel type. So I think Corviknight is going to fit phenomenally on this team. Now, next up, I ended up grabbing a pretty familiar face in Latias. Now, we had Latias in BBR Season 3, which just recently ended, and we also had Latios in NCP last season. So you could tell I'm a really big Lati guy. I love the Latias. I think they're amazing Pokemon. I think Latias plus Corviknight is a phenomenal defensive pairing, just like how we had Latias Celesteela, which is the same, you know, real defensive kind of pairing in BBR. It kind of works the same way. Latias also really does not appreciate both dark types, especially dark types, which Urshifu not only 4 times resists, but absolutely rips through. But also does not appreciate, you know, Fat Fairies, which Corviknight can always slow U-turn on, or I can force them in, make them take a big Side Shock or something like that, maybe put them in 2-hit KO range from a Banded Wicked Blow or something like that. So I think Urshifu plus Latias is going to form a pretty nice little offensive core, while Latias also gives us great defensive utility as well. It, again, is a phenomenal pairing with Corviknight. I think Corviknight covers all of its weaknesses minus Dark and Ice, but it's essentially a knock and Ice resist with how bulky it is. And we obviously take on, like, you know, those fairy moves very well and things like that, which can obviously be really, really, really solid. And Latias takes on Corviknight's weaknesses being fire and electric really, really well, which is obviously really solid. Not only that, but Latias actually also gives us more momentum. If you didn't know, Latias got Baton Pass as a DLC, as a move in the most recent DLC, which is actually really solid in a draft league setting where we can pass dry stats, and we can dry Baton Pass, not pass dry stats, doesn't make any sense. But we can, you know, dry Baton Pass and use it for momentum purposes only. As I'm baiting in those dark types, I go into my Urshifu, they're like, oh shit, they gotta switch out, I U-turn, and we put them in the vortex a little bit. So all 3 of our Pokemon are right now have access to a momentum or pivoting option. You can see the first 2, actually, I totally forgot to mention it. Vepsis had Urshifu Single Strike Corviknight last season, and it looked like an absolute blast, so I wanted to try it myself. And I think Latias just really kind of, you know, compounds on that as I take a sip. Sorry about that. Okay. But yeah, that's going to be our next, our round 3 now. We're essentially picking wheels as well. Keep in mind, our first pick, we were second pick in the draft, and we have to wait for it to go all the way down, then all the way back to us. Then we basically wait back to back, especially because me and Liv were drafting somewhat together, and we somewhat knew each other's plans. So I wasn't really super worried about Snipes the whole draft from her. So I was essentially having a, you know, a wheel pick in a sense. So Latias and Corviknight were essentially, you know, picked together on purpose, you know, obviously to go together. And round 4 comes along. We have to wait a while, but we end up getting Galarian Weezing. Now, there was a ton of Pokemon I really wanted in this slot. Personally, I really wanted Nidoking. I think Nidoking plus Urshifu Single Strike would be absolutely sick nasty to switch into. But we ended up with a more defensive fairy, a more defensive poison. We're able to round out a Dragon Fairy Steel Core, which is obviously very nice. We're able to get both a grounded poison and a poison off of the ground, so it's not even really a ground weakness depending on the matchup, or, you know, if we're not playing an Excadrill or something like that, which is obviously very solid. Another thing it gives me is T-Spikes. I think T-Spikes with the team that we draft can be really nasty for a lot of teams to potentially deal with, which is really nice. It gives us a Fairy Resist and a Pokemon to punish, you know, these potential fairies, unless they're rocking out with Fire plus Fairy plus what do you call it, psychic coverage. They're not really doing too much to us, obviously, because they're gonna need their stab, they need something to break through Corvi, they need something to break through Weezing, and things like that. So that's obviously very nice. Neutralizing Gas is a great niche ability to, you know, obviously eliminate our opponent's abilities, things like you know, the Clefables of the world and their Magic Guard. So Neutralizing Gas can be genuinely phenomenal. I've seen awesome, you know, sets with Weezing where it's running Scarf to catch an unburdened Hawlucha off guard because it takes away the speed that it gained, and then it outspeeds it with a lot of speed investment, picks it off with the Strange Team. This thing has good coverage offensively as well. Realistically, it's only its stabs being fairy and poison, but then also getting fire coverage on top of that is realistically all it really needs. It really does help it out a ton. Like I said, it gives us T-Spikes, it gives another defogger, so we have 3 defoggers currently, but we're also starting to add some hazards to the, you know, to the fray, in the sense that Weezing gets T-Spikes. Now, we do have a steel type that does not have access to rocks, and that is always a downside in my mind. Same thing why it's always tough to draft a team around Celesteela, because you always end up with subpar rockers. Same thing with Corviknight. So we're gonna have to patch that up soon, but we at the very least have our T-Spike setter, we have our T-Spikes absorber, we have our fairy type. It kind of just ticked a lot of boxes for us, and being that I couldn't get Nidoking as much as I really wanted it, and as much as amazingly it would have fit here, freaking Vepsis sniped me with his double poison core, and we just ended up not getting it. Hopefully we'll get to try it again soon, but I'm happy with this right now for sure. Then with like that second half of the wheel, I wanted to grab my bulky water. If you guys haven't drafted or haven't seen Kyle's draft analysis, go look at his team, and then you'll understand why I felt like I needed to draft my water early. They were all going this round. People realized what he was doing with his draft, and they were like, oh crap, I need my water type. immediately. And that's exactly how I felt. Now, there was a couple waters that I really wanted with this. I contemplated going a slow twin, like slow king, slow row, or something like that, because I think they're very solid with Urshifu, but I already had Latias, and I didn't want to compound, psychic types if I didn't need to. Milotic gives me a really, really bulky, fat water with access to momentum, which is obviously really nice. Weezing doesn't have any, but Milotic does have flip turn, which is really cool. A really fat Spadef wall, as well as Fizdef wall with Flame Orb sets. Obviously, Flame Orb plus Marvel Scale is very annoying to break through. Obviously, Toxic, Scald, Recover, like Haze or Ice Beam is realistically I don't need in a lot of matchups. It gives us another solid fire resist for the Corviknight. It just, really gives us that solid bulky water that's so paramount for teams to have, and I felt like it fit the best to my team that was left on the board. I was also contemplating Suicune a little bit, but I wanted something with a little bit more reliable recovery, and I felt Milotic, offered the team that for a little bit less of a point price. So as much as I kind of was feeling Suicune, especially with the T-Spikes from Weezing and the fat team that we have, I figured it would just be in my best interest to go Milotic this round. So that's going to be like the second half of our second wheel. We have to wait for it to go all the way down and all the way back up. And when it did so, we ended up drafting Mamoswine. Now, I told you guys earlier I wanted Nidoking as my ground type, but it ended up getting sniped. I felt comfortable waiting for Mamoswine, and thankfully it fell back to me at round 6, which is genuinely awesome. This gives me rocks. This gives me another strong wall breaker. Right now, wall breaking wise, I realistically only had Urshifu single strike. So Mamoswine gives me that. It gives me rocks. It gives me a ground type, which gives me that electric immunity. It has a base 80-ish speed tier, which is actually pretty nice for a team that we don't really have. And this Pokemon just clicks buttons, man. I love me some Mamoswine. There's not many checks to it in the game, and I think obviously it's going to be really hard to switch into the combination of Mamoswine plus Urshifu and things like that. Well, Mamoswine doesn't necessarily rip through the things that Urshifu hates, which is literally only fairies, I think. Most fairies are going to be 2-hit KO'd, and most things in general are going to be 2-hit KO'd by a Life Orb Mamoswine or a Choice Band Mamoswine because it is so unbelievably strong. We can go Oblivious to block Intimidates if we think, if our opponent obviously does have Intimidate, or we can go Thick Fat and essentially be an Ice Resist, which is nice because we don't have any Ice Resist right now, and that's something that's a little scary. Well, we do have Milotic, so outside of Milotic, we don't have any Ice Resist, which is a little bit scary. Fire, we do obviously have Latias plus Milotic. We cover it well with, the fighting type weakness when we have things like Latias and Weezing. So I think our team covers Mamoswine very well, and I think if we can position this thing well enough with all of the momentum we have, being Urshifu, Corviknight, Latias, Milotic, 4 to 6 members have momentum right now. I think if we position it correctly, Mamoswine is going to rip through some teams, and there's some matchups where people just can't deal with Mamo, because that Ice plus Ground Stab is a pretty nasty combination to have to potentially deal with. So I'm really happy we ended up getting Mamoswine all the way in round 6, which is really cool. Next up, we got Licky. My team lost to an offensive ghost type, and I needed to stop that. I needed a cleric. I needed some wish to keep things healthy without having to lose momentum and click roost or recover or anything like that. And Licky obviously gave me that. I think Licky plus Weezing is actually going to be a very annoying core for a lot of teams to break. Like I said, because Licky can obviously wish up our our Weezing, even our Mamoswine if we want to go like a fatter Mamo, which I'm definitely not opposed to. It can heal ball off things, and from the setup perspective, I think Licky's pretty sick nasty. I love SD Licky, I love Curse Licky, especially teams without ghosts. They have a lot of trouble breaking this thing once it starts cursing up. They have a lot of trouble dealing with this thing when it's throwing off +2 body slams, and your team just doesn't deal with it very well because it can't really, physically break it because this Pokemon's so unbelievably fat. I love it. I love it also for the sense that it can't be taunted due to, I believe it's Oblivious being its ability, which is, obviously awesome. It's also Intimidating Immune, which isn't as big of a deal in Licky. The main thing is being, that fat, bulky normal that isn't shut down by taunt. And I think that's obviously very, very clutch for our team right here. So very happy with Licky. It was one that I was really looking at getting, and it ended up working out well. Next up, we grabbed Talonflame. If you look at my team right now, we are incredibly slow. We peak at Latias at 110, and that is never, ideal in my mind. I think you always need to have something 115 or above to have that elite speed tier to outspeed teams, and Talonflame actually fit very well. Give us a fire type. Now it does give us another flying type, which means we do have 2 of them, but I don't think that Talonflame and Corviknight share any weaknesses by barring the electric typing, which we have a Latias. which we have a Lickilicky, which is pretty much an electric resist. And then we have Big Mamo, that's obviously the immunity, and a lot of them can't really touch Mamo, barring like Grasson and things like that. And again, we got Latias, so I'm not super worried in that sense. You know, electric isn't as good of an offensive typing as it used to be in my personal mind, but you know, that's just my personal opinion. It gives us more momentum. We kind of fell off the momentum train with Mamolicky, but we were able to pick it up with U-turn. This Pokemon can be physically offensive and, you know, either set up with like Swords Dance or Bulk Up, or it can be specially offensive because it's just as strong from the special side. Incredibly fast. That priority Gale Wings with guaranteed with heavy duty boots is genuinely amazing. And obviously boots are an option, so we don't have to worry about that 4 times crippling Stealth Rock weakness. Another very good fast Fogger. We can get off some Prankster Tailwind shenanigans if we really need to, with Urshifu as like, you know, not Prankster, Gale Wings Tailwind shenanigans if we are at full, so we can then get into our Urshifu, and that's obviously very, very clutch. It baits in rocks, especially, being that its dual typing is, you know, flying and fire, and if we can do that, that's a free Urshifu off a free close combat or Wicked Blow, and, you know, be absolutely chilling, or even going into Mamoswine and clicking Earthquake, as we can bait those things in with Talonflame. So I think this Pokemon's actually very solid for the team. I love Talonflame. I had it in GDL Season 2, and it was really, really solid. And I had Moltres here last season, which is the same typing. Moltres is obviously a better Pokemon, but Talonflame offered us a very, very clutch speed tier that I couldn't really pass up at this point in the draft. It was the best fast Pokemon that fit our team at this point, so pretty happy with Talonflame. Next up, we ended up grabbing Exploud, and now I know Exploud is a bit iffy because we already have a slow normal type, but I wanted a special breaker. That's one thing that I didn't like about this team, is I lack a lot of immediate offense outside of Urshifu and Mamo, and I definitely lack immediate special offense, and Exploud gives me that. Now, what switches in on Exploud? What switches in on Exploud? Steel types and rock types, because obviously Ghost can't switch in on Boom Burst because it's scrappy, and those are the only resist to Boom Burst in the game. And what does that do? That allows me to, you know, aggressively get in my Urshifu, which is awesome. I can obviously just throw off big specs Boom Burst, Silk Scarf, Life Orb Boom Burst, and really rip through a lot of teams. Now, it is a bit matchup dependent because of its pretty mediocre speed tier, but with its HP stat, if invested correctly, it can be pretty fat, so that's obviously very nice. It has a pretty deep move pool, but let's be honest, I'm clicking Boom Burst 95% of the time just because I can, but it definitely has some really cool niche options that I'm you know, pretty excited to explore this season. Now, I wish I could have gotten a less budget and low tier, what do you call it, special breaker, but I think Exploud will do the job nonetheless. We just might have to bring Exploud more than you'll typically see it in a lot of other leagues. So not the biggest deal in the world, but you know, just something to keep in mind for sure. And next up, we got Coalossal again. Kind of repeating typings here a little bit. We have Talonflame, but I wanted Coal because I wanted another rocker. Look at our team. We only have 2. One of them is Mamo, one of them is Coalossal. But I will say, I think Coalossal is an amazing Pokemon. I think it's incredibly slept on. Our good buddy Just Kurt, who we played in finals last season, used Coalossal phenomenally. I used Coalossal in my old T Harmony run. Most recently, it was a Showdown League I did, you know, off the channel. But I really was actually surprised with the utility that Coalossal offered. It gives me spikes and rocks, which is really, really clutch for this team, and it also gives me rapid spin, which I did not have access to before. Flame Body is really nice. It gives me another flying resist, which is really, really clutch. Before this, I only had Corviknight as a flying resist, and I wanted you know, a secondary option for that, which is obviously awesome. Flame Body is a great ability. I believe it also gets Flash Fire to be fire immune, which is awesome. We can also see run boots and pretty reliably get up our own hazards or spin away our opponents, which is really great. And it's just an overall solid utility, low tier type mon. I really do like Coalossal. I think it's a lot better than people give it credit for, despite those 2 pretty big 4 times weaknesses to water and ground. Still very, very good for sure. And then lastly, I'm kind of right off the draft. Let's take a sip of my coffee because I'm feeling it. But lastly, we end up running the draft off the clean little ground resist and Leafeon. Now, our team isn't necessarily weak to ground, but I do like having a bulky grass nonetheless. I didn't want to auto lose to something like a Zygarde, which I did right now. So we're able to pick up Leafeon as a very, very budget, low tier, physically defensive grass. This thing's very, very fat on the physical side, which is definitely very much so welcome. It has a decent speed tier, 95, which is pretty surprising. And potential setup and options like Swords Dance, which is great. It gives access to Chlorophyll, so if we're going to run some Cheesy Sun, we could always do so for sure. Like I said, it gets access to Swords Dance, so it can rip through some teams like that. It's another Wish Passer, so we don't have to bring Licky every week. It's another Cleric, so we don't have to bring Licky every week, which I think it's nice to have multiple Clerics on a fatter, more balanced team like this. And it's a, just an overall nice pickup. It gets knockoff as well, which obviously to spread the removal of items, which is really, really nice. It does struggle with steel types a little bit, but we have plenty of things to break through steals between Urshifu, Talonflame, Coalossal, Mamoswine, things like that do rip through them. And it's another Pokemon that gets access to momentum. We get Baton Pass, just like Latias, to be able to dry pass out and, get some momentum into our breakers like Urshifu. And again, if this thing's forcing in steel types, that's what we go into. If this thing's forcing in offensive fires, we go into our Mamo and we click Earthquake. Or we go into our Latias and we start setting up. Or we drop a Life Orb or Specs Draco, because I will bring offensive Latias. I think people a lot of the time when they have a Latias in a league, they are very much so concerned with bringing it fat every week. Latias still has great offensive capabilities, so I think that's, something that we, will definitely explore and stuff like that. I love Latias and BBR, but I wasn't able to use it as well offensively as I wanted. I think this season with this team, it'll definitely have to carry more of an offensive load. So, yeah, that's going to be our NCP Season 5 team. Hopefully we can defend the title. Season 4 was awesome. I love my team. I think I like this season's team a little bit just as much. It's a little bit uncomfortable for me. It's uncomfortable to look at for me because it's not something I would typically draft. I try to branch out a little bit, especially being that we won last season. But I think I'll be able to adjust. There might be a few bumps in the road, but I'm really excited to try this team. Hopefully pull up with that title defense and win this season again and be able to use this nice clean gold background next season and all that stuff. But yeah. That's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, drop a like. If you're new here, be sure to drop a sub. Like I said, join us on our journey through the NCP this season, as well as all the other draft leagues we're doing, all the other discussion videos. I'm sure you'll enjoy your stay if you enjoy draft league content, or if you enjoyed this video or anything like that. But yeah, that being said, I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you guys. I'll see you in the next one.